Hello, my name is H.A. Musser. I'm the president and CEO of Santa Maria Community Services. We're a local nonprofit on the west side of Cincinnati, serving more than 3,000 individuals every year. We've been in business strengthening families for more than 100 years. And for 36 of those years, I've been part of the organization. You might ask, why have I been at this organization so long? Well, it's because of the work that we do, the people we serve, and the people that I get to work with every day who are such dedicated staff and volunteers who are committed to making a difference. Let me tell you just a little bit about what we do. Santa Maria works in a neighborhood-based fashion to support families that are raising very young children, newborns up to preschool. We help those parents get their kids ready for kindergarten so that they can be successful. We work with middle school students at a local public school that are really at risk and help support their families as those kids succeed academically. We engage young adults who've dropped out of school and want to go back and get their high school equivalency, and then get them on a path to employment and a career. We work with families to improve their health, those who have chronic health conditions or other concerns around wellness. We teach English to adults who are immigrants to our country and need to know the language and be able to participate fully in our culture. And wrapping it all together, we are able to help people on a path out of poverty by pulling all of these pieces together and also working with those families on financial stability and housing stability and learning how to manage their money. So lots of ways that we're supporting and strengthening families. I would tell you that our work has been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. We've been working more remotely, but we have continued to reach out daily to drop off packages of food and supplies that they need for cleaning and activity packets for children to do at home. Lots of activities and lots of opportunities to make a difference with families. And so we just thank you for joining us this week for Setting the Table. This is our first attempt at an online event, and we're just excited to have Steve Raleigh and so many others supporting this work. And we want to just thank you for joining us this week in helping families help themselves.
Thank you, H.A. I'm happy to be part of Setting the Table. I'm Steve Raleigh, the Chief Meteorologist from WCPO 9 News. I was originally asked to MC an in-person event called The Sharing Table earlier this year. However, the pandemic forced the event to be postponed until September 10th, and it'll still happen. Oh, it's going to happen at Rheingeist Brewery. But we envisioned creating a new online fundraiser called Setting the Table to not only build anticipation for the proposed event, but also create new ideas and new connections as well. So, thank you very much for participating. Now, before I dive into the details, I want to thank the presenting sponsor, Nehemiah Manufacturing. They've been an incredible asset to the Price Hill community, a wonderful community partner. I also want to thank just all of the sponsors because they make both events possible. Setting the Table will happen from July 6th to the 10th. Every evening, a video of cooking demonstrations featuring local chefs will be uploaded onto Santa Maria's Facebook and YouTube pages, as well as another platform, and this one's called GiveSmart. Now, the videos. We'll show you how to prepare a delicious meal from some of Cincinnati's finest chefs. You can watch these videos, obviously, from your computer, mobile device, whatever is, well, works for you, and you can leave a comment. We encourage you to do so. On Thursday, July 9th, HA and Santa Maria employees will host a virtual conference call to check in with supporters and participants. So the best thing to do to check on that is to take a look at the Facebook page for more information. Now, while watching the videos, you can support Santa Maria. Visit stt.givesmart.com to donate, buy raffle tickets, and buy handcrafted bowls. Again, visit stt.givesmart.com to support Santa Maria. Now, speaking of raffles and bowls, take a look at these incredible raffle baskets. Now, by visiting the website, you can purchase one ticket for $5 or 5 tickets for $20. We also have beautiful clay bowls that were handcrafted by the artisans at Queen City Clay. They're just gorgeous. Each bowl costs $20, and you can certainly buy one for yourself or in kind, perhaps, for a Santa Maria client. Details about distribution of all of the purchased items will follow. Again, it's www.stt.givesmart.com to buy raffle tickets and bowls. And now for the moment you've all been waiting for. I'm happy to introduce the next chef as they prepare a delicious meal. Now I'll see you after the demonstration. Enjoy. Bon appetit.
My name is Sam Dobrozzi. I'm the owner-operator of Fireside Pizza in Walnut Hills. This is my beautiful wife, Andrea. And we are going to film a video cooking pizza from scratch. So we are going to make the pizza and we're going to go through the entire process. And we're going to go through it starting with the easiest stuff and ending with the hardest stuff. First, I'm going to talk about, we're going to be making a basic pepperoni pizza. It's kind of like the most basic American style pizza that you can make. It has dough, it has sauce, it has cheese, and it has pepperoni. And that's all we're going to do. And I'm going to talk you through those 4 parts. I'm going to talk you through pepperoni, sauce, and cheese, and then my lovely wife is going to make the dough from scratch. We're going to let it get ready, and then I will cook one in the home oven and show you guys exactly how we do it to get as close as you can to like a wood-fired pizza at home. Now, the first and easiest thing in a pepperoni pizza is the pepperoni. We do not make our own at Fireside. Very few pizza restaurants do. We get ours from a purveyor in Columbus, Ohio called Ezzo. That's E-Z-Z-O. Ezzo has been making pepperoni. I believe the company started in the 1910s. Like all good things, they made their way to Ohio. They're in Columbus right now making the highest quality Italian-style sausages and pepperoni. I've got one of their pepperonis right here. I'm going to try to hold it up so you can get a good look at it. It's kind of not easy to see, but there's a real nice marbling there with the fat. Some notes about pepperoni that are interesting. Pepperoni's it's a uniquely American invention. They don't have anything like it in Italy. There's no pepperoni in Sorrento. They have something similar called salame picante, which is kind of similar but not the same. Pepperoni is American. Pepperoni pizza is as American as pizza gets. It's my favorite pizza because when you go to a pizzeria, if you order a pepperoni, you get to taste their dough, you get to taste their sauce, you get to taste their cheese, you get to see how they bake it. There's no goofy ingredients to hide behind or no tricks or tips. It's just a straight up pizza. And I always order pepperoni when I'm eating at a new pizza place. So when you order a Fireside Pizza, you'll notice something is that we put all of our pepperonis on the pie so that they're not touching. And they'll be filled up, and then when you cook it, the pepperonis will contract a little bit, but they won't just contract. I'm going to try to do this here. They'll kind of cup up a little bit, and as they cup up, in the center there will be a little pool of oil, which is super flavorful. So I believe, and this is just my humble opinion, I'm not casting judgment on any other pizza makers, but if you overlap your pepperonis, you can mess with that cupping right there. And pepperoni makers like that. That cupping is something they study and they test when they're doing their cuts and their grinds. They want it to happen. So when we do our pizza today, we're going to put our pepperonis on there, but we're not going to overlap them. That'll be really important, and you'll see why at the end of the bake. So that's all for pepperoni. We use Ezzo, like I said. It's really kind of hard to find. If you can find it, I highly recommend it. If not, you don't have to spend a lot of money or time. You can go to Kroger and get one of those little bags of pepperonis at the end of the cheese aisle. That'll work fine too. But if you really want to take your home pizza to, get closer to a professional level, you should try out some different pepperonis because, it can make a big difference. All right, so the second part of the pizza and the second hardest part is the sauce. So here's a batch of our sauce. This is a quart of our sauce from Fireside. I'm not going to make it here for you in the video, but I am going to talk just a little bit about the way we do it. I highly recommend, if you're going to start making pizzas at home and you want to get serious about it, going to the pizza subreddit and start taking a look at their FAQ and their kind of 101 things. Some of the things they do, these pizza nerds on there, which they're all amazing, they know so much, is talk about the best types of tomatoes to use. Our pizza sauce is a mixture of 2 different types of tomatoes. One is called 7-Eleven, like the convenience store, 7-Eleven tomatoes. Those are, I believe, skin-on, whole tomatoes, uncrushed. And then we also use a type called super dolce, which are a lot sweeter. They're processed, they're crushed and ground, or they're ground, excuse me. They got some whole basil leaves in there and some natural sweeteners and pectins from the tomato. Our sauce is 2 parts 7-Eleven, 2 parts super dolce, 1 part water, and a little bit of salt and oregano. And that's how we make our sauce. I think that it's important for American-style pizzas, for the most part, to use some sort of raw, either crushed or ground tomato. To do a little blending, try a couple different ones. I recommend going to a high-end grocery store like Jungle Jim's and just trying out a couple different products you see up there. Try to see what your perfect blend is. You're almost always going to need to add a little salt, probably, and just use regular old iodized table salt. Once it gets in there, it's not going to make a difference. And then I would recommend, if you're making American-style pizza, add some oregano. Oregano is a really important characteristic of American pizza, either crust or sauce. Almost always sauce, but sometimes people add it on the crust. So that's it. There's the little sauce right here. You can buy a pizza sauce in the store. That's great too. But making your own can be a little more fun. So again, our recipe, 2 parts super dolce, 2 parts 7-Eleven, 1 part water, and a little bit of salt and oregano to add. Now, the third part is cheese. And this is this is very simple like the other ones too. Here's a picture. Let me see if I can get it in. Yeah, real glamorous, huh? Little styrofoam thing of cheese. This is the type of cheese that we use at Fireside for our regular pizzas. Things like a cheese pizza, or a bacon pizza, or a pepperoni, or a veggie. This is, along with red sauce, this is like one of the standards. So we use a 1-to-1 blend of unsmoked provolone and mozzarella. You can use just about any kind of cheese you want for pizza. You can use feathered or shredded cheddar, or Swiss, or pepper jack. I am not wild about those to be like a kind of a more kind of traditional-ish American pizza. I think that provolone or mozzarella or a 1-to-1 blend is the best one. I prefer unsmoked provolone. Smoked provolone kind of gets in the way of your sauce and your pepperoni. Unsmoked provolone and mozzarella just goes together really well. There's a little bit of a kind of a sharpness to the provolone. Mozzarella should be creamy, should be kind of inoffensive and out of the way. And they melt really well. One thing we're going to see when we build our pizza later is one of the biggest mistakes people make is they overtop their pies. They put too much sauce on or too much cheese on. And when that happens, you're creating this thermal barrier between the dough and the toppings, so the dough kind of gets what's called a gum line. If you've ever had bad pizza and you've bit into it, the bottom is crusty, but the middle's kind of gummy and chewy. Like, you want a nice chew to it and a softness, but you don't want anything that's gummy or that like sticks to your teeth, or that's not really what you're looking for. So we'll see a little bit later when we build the pizza to make sure less is a lot of times more when you're topping them. Before we get to make the dough, we should meet some of our assistants. We have 2. Obviously, my lovely wife is going to be the dough expert today, and then we've got another assistant. A nice, good big boy right here.
He's the supervisor.
He is the supervisor, and he is supervising from the middle of the kitchen, which is a convenient place in case I need him to reach anything from any of the shelves. So thankfully he's there. And then we'll meet our other supervisor. I think she's remote working today. She's been remote working since the beginning of the pandemic. There we go. There we go. Hi, baby girl. You want to say hi? Good girl. Look at that evil look that she's giving me. All right, so those are the supervisors. So we are ready to make our dough, and first what we need is 1.25 pounds of flour, 10 ounces of cold water, 1.5 ounces of warm water. That warm water needs to be at 100 degrees to allow your yeast to bloom. 1 teaspoon of yeast. We're going to use instant yeast today. And the flour we're using is bread flour. Also high protein, baker's flour, all Trump's flour. That's what we're using. And then we're going to have a 1/4 ounce of oil. We used extra virgin today. That's preferable. And then 1 tablespoon of salt. So the first step is we're going to take a teaspoon of our instant yeast and put it into our 1.5 ounces of warm water. Give it a good stir, stir, stir. And then that is going to sit for about 5 to 7 minutes. And what is going to happen in there is that you are going to see some kind of foam develop on the top, and that is carbon dioxide from the yeast waking up and starting to live and eat and breathe, and it'll start to create these little bubbles that'll create a little foam in about 5 to 7 minutes. Another side note, the 1.25 pounds of flour is about 4 cups. So we have our 1.25 pounds or 4 cups of flour, and we have our 1 tablespoon of salt, and everything is already in this bowl. So we're gonna pour it in our mixing bowl. All right, and then we are gonna turn our mixing bowl on to a moderate speed. On this KitchenAid, we're gonna use a 3, and we're gonna let it go for about 30 seconds to make sure the salt and the flour get well mixed. All right, so we have let our yeast wake up. You're gonna see some bubbles forming right there. The longer we leave it, the more those bubbles will kind of come up. You don't really need it foamy. Really, 5 to 7 minutes is all you need, just seeing a little bit of activity. So now we are gonna pour our yeast water slowly into our flour and salt. All right, now we are going to grab our cold water and our oil, and we are going to pour that in next. Again, you're going to want to pour this nice and slow. All right, so now our oil and our water is all in. It's gonna look really dry to start. It is not really gonna start forming up for about 2 or 3 minutes. We will come back and take a look at it after 5 minutes. So we're like 3 minutes in, and you can see if everything has gone right, it is pulling everything from the sides of the bowl. And now, a lot of times this is where you'll pull a dough if you're making a recipe, a lot of other types of recipes, because your dough is formed together. But we're gonna let it go for at least 3 or 4 more minutes, because we wanna get some really strong gluten bonds formed, and we really want, kind of a firm dough. Before you take your dough out, you wanna get your surface ready. So we're using a composite cutting board right here. You're gonna wanna use some sort of fat on the bottom of it, or oil. There's this really chefy stuff I found at Kroger called Pam. Chefs everywhere have made it famous. It's such a high-end ingredient. So we're gonna cover it. Make sure that we cover our top in some kind of non-stick spray, and that's where our dough is about to land. So our dough is done. We've had about 8 minutes on a 3 on the KitchenAid, and I'm gonna show you kind of the texture as it pulls away here. Most of it is gonna stick together. You're going to find when you're doing this that your times vary depending on whether you're mixing or doing it by hand. If you do this process by hand, I recommend doing it in a giant bowl, having someone else pour the water slowly while you knead with your hands. That's going to take about 15 minutes. On a KitchenAid, it's going to take somewhere between, I would say, 8 to 9 minutes. We did stop after 5 minutes to scrape the outside of the bowl to incorporate it back in with the center. But then we let it go for this went about 8.5 minutes. And it will depend a little bit on the temperature in your house, the humidity. It'll depend on what kind of hook you have, whether or not you're doing it with a stand mixer or you're doing it by hand. Really, you're not going to a time. What you're doing is going to a texture. And I am going to pull this dough ball out right now, and I'm going to take it over to our cutting board, and I'm going to show you what kind of texture we're looking for. There we go. All right, so here we go.
Supervisor.
So we've got our dough right there, and you're gonna see some sticking to your hands. That's about right. We've got it here. This is gonna make, it looks like 3 or maybe 3 medium-sized doughs. All right, we are going to leave it there, and this is what you want, is a little bit of that. See, you press it in, and it's not gonna pop back right away, but it will come back a little. And then you're also gonna want it so that you hit your hands on it a few times, you're gonna get a little bit on you. Not a ton, but a little bit. So I'm going to leave this here on my well-oiled board. I'm going to cover it up with a loose towel or kitchen towel, whatever you got, and then just let this sit at room temperature between 65 and 75 for 10 minutes. Okay, so it has been 10 minutes. We let this rest 10 minutes, and we're gonna see something that's a little different about this, is that it's a little smoother than when we initially left it down. Another thing that's gonna change, my hands are clean, so I'm gonna press really hard on there a couple times, and while it's slightly tacky, I'm not getting stuff that's coming off into my hand. It will be releasing just a little bit of oil onto my hand, so I can feel that, but this guy right here, if we followed our recipe right, is about 2 pounds, and let's see. This is our little handy scale that would be very helpful if you have, but if you don't, you can just kind of wing it. Okay, so this guy right here is about 2 pounds right on the nose. 2 pounds, it's about 2 pounds, 0.6 ounces, which means we've got about 33 ounces total. And so we're gonna be making 3 11-ounce doughs. And each one of those should spread out to about 8 to 8.5 inches wide when we do it. Actually, excuse me, that's wrong. About 12.5 inches wide when we make the final process. So I don't have a dough separator, which is this little kind of thing you'll see guys use where they'll chop the dough off. So I'm gonna just kind of wing it with this pizza cutter and hope we do the job right. So all right, 9.3 ounces. That's gonna be 10 on the nose. And that's gonna be 11 ounces right on the nose. That's great. So then we're gonna take this dough that we have right here, and you're gonna kind of do this move right here where you're folding it out and then pressing it back in. Folding it out and then pressing it back in. You're gonna do this a couple times. And what you're gonna find out is that your dough is gonna get much, much smoother. You see that right there? So this is the move. You take it, kind of press it out, and then you press it back in. Everybody's got a different move. This is just what mine looks like. Then you're gonna take those little loose ends, kind of form them down, and then you've got a nice little dough ball. It's relatively smooth on the outside. So here's our platter we're gonna store these guys at. I've sprayed this with our chef's super premium pan stick sauce stuff. So it's gonna go right on there. Nice and in place, it's great. All right, let's do the other two really quickly. There's 12.6. All right, 10.2 and 11.4. 11.0, and that'll be 11.0 again. So we're gonna do this where we're forming our ball. And this is something that we do at Fireside about twice a day. Only our recipe calls for 25 pounds of flour for each make. And we make about, I think 88 of these per batch of the largest. So you'll see my guys, if you're ever in Fireside Pizza and you see guys just doing this, we've gotta do this stuff for like an hour or two every single day. Which is really annoying, but it's also really good. So we got our dough together. Got one more one, nice here, nice and nice. All right, so we've got our 3 doughs. Now, there's a couple more things we gotta do. So let's take our super high-end, original, no-stick cooking spray made with canola oil blend, up to 99% less residue. And let's cover the top of these guys in that. Cover, cover, cover. Great, got it? And then we're gonna take cling wrap or plastic wrap, and you're going to cover these guys. This will probably take 2 pieces, and I'll show you kind of how we do it at Fireside. You can see this has been well rehearsed, nice and smooth. All right, so you get it over the top here, and then you kind of tuck it around the sides. What you're really looking for is not much airflow in there. Not much, maybe just some little bits here and there, but not a ton. And then I'm gonna do one more piece to make sure we've got a relatively nice seal there. So if you do not cover this up with the right way, what's gonna happen is that there's gonna be a lot of air that gets down there, and the edges of these are gonna dry up, and then when you try to, later on, when we try to fold these out into nice pizza skins, they're gonna be like crusty and gross, and it's just not what we want. So I'm just kind of getting it nice and in there. I feel good about this. So this is going to go in a refrigerator at your house, 41 degrees or lower. This is going to stay in your refrigerator for 6 hours at minimum. But what you're probably gonna want is 24. In that time, what's gonna happen to these guys is they're gonna blow up. They're gonna increase in size between 50 and 100%. And see how we kind of arranged them here, not in a straight line, but we kind of staggered them. If we had put them in a straight line, the ones on the edges would push over the edge. We don't want that. They're going to form, but they're going to give each other a little bit of room on this platter. But make sure you kind of do a staggered line if you do several of them, because they're going to grow, right there together. Thank heavens we hit them with that little cooking spray, or else they would kind of form into one gross mass. So in the refrigerator, 6 hours. 24 is best. 6 hours is a minimum. And then we will get these out and start messing with them tomorrow. Good morning, everyone. Our doughs have proofed in the fridge for about 14 hours or so. It is bright and early. It's 11:42 in the morning. Perfect time for some pizza. So this is what they look like. You can see they've probably doubled in size, just about doubled. We're gonna open them up. Yeah, so they're sweating a little bit of oil, which you might be able to see on my finger there, but they are not sticky at all. Remember, we're always mixing and cooking to a consistency, not like a time or a temperature. When we took them out of the mixer, they were tacky. They would stick on our hands. After 10 minutes of resting, they were a little sticky, but they had stopped. Now they're not sticky at all. They're not sticking to my hand. And because we covered them in the PAM oil, they don't stick at all. They feel great. They're ready to stretch. So in your workspace, you want to put a decent amount of regular flour, and then if you have some, a little bit of semolina flour as well. Maybe 1 part all-purpose or bread flour, and then 1 part semolina. This is going to make a big mess in your kitchen. It's just the way it is. So there's 2 ways to do this. One is that you can use a rolling pin. I don't like using a rolling pin. What it's going to do is create a really uniform, flat dough, and it'll be really easy. If you want to do it that way, great. You can even use like a wine bottle. If you have one, anything, will work. That's going to be the easy way to do it, but I'm going to show you the hard way. And if you want to use the easy way, that's totally cool. But I'm going to show you the hard way because it creates a better pizza this way. So we are going to stretch this guy by hand. And you're going to need so much flour here. You just want to cover your workspace in flour. Make sure your dough is covered in flour. It's going to make it easier to work. And then, so you're going to take it, and what I'm going to do is just start pressing it out like this. I slip my fingers off the edge, and you can see it slowly start to move. This is difficult on wood. It's actually a little easier on, in my opinion, it's a little easier on metal or some kind of composite if you have one, but we're going to use this wood cutting board to keep it all right here. And we are just slowly spreading. I'm left-handed, so you might want to reverse this if you're right-handed, but here's my move, is like this. I'm pulling with this hand, I'm kind of rotating with this hand. And slowly, we're going to come to something that is the right size. I always pull from the edge, and you're going to notice the middle of your dough is going to get a little thinner, and the outside is going to be a little thicker. And then here's another nice move, is once you get it stretched out a little bit, you get your hands in there and just kind of pull it. Just kind of pull it a little, pull it apart. Pull it apart. And if you want to get really fancy, you can, this is called slapping, and this is called tossing.
Oh, we missed the toss. We got another one.
Oh, that's really bad. Fan there. You can toss if you want. It's not that important, really. Really, it's just stretching. All right, so we've got something that's almost circular here. And so here's one of my favorite things about doing it by hand is see this little peninsula right here, this little whatever you call it. That would not have happened if I had used this guy. This shows you that it was done by hand, that an actual person made it, and that's kind of cool. So I like it. So we've got our hand tossed pizza dough. It looks really great. You can see a lot of nice little bubbles starting to form. There's a thin spot here. It's thick around the edge. There's a lot of things that are irregular about it, and that's what makes it so good. Like I said, it's easier to use this, and if you want to use that, it's totally okay. But if you do it by hand, even if you turn it, you get this like kind of glob-looking thing. That's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's kind of what makes it fun. So we're gonna do pizza sauce. All right, here's the pizza sauce we talked about earlier. That's about 2 tablespoons. There's really nothing better than a spoon for pizza sauce. That's what we use at the restaurant. Only our spoon's a little bigger than this. That was my sous chef helping out. Pretty awesome. Okay, so here's what it's going to look like when we sauce this guy. And you're going to see that you can see the dough underneath the sauce. We're not completely covering this. This sauce is rich, it's salty, it's flavorful, it's got a lot of acid in it. We don't need to overdo it. If you overdo it, your pie is going to taste too sweet or too salty. It's just not going to be good. So we're going to go with less is more in this case. And again, this is just the way I do it. If you are like a big super saucy pizza, throw it on there. I don't care. There's no rules. All right, here's with our cheese, our provolone and mozzarella blend. And something you're going to notice about this is it's when we get it on there, we're going to cover all the way around to the edge, right up to the edge, the crust. But we're going to still want to see the sauce underneath that cheese. So that's really enough. It's going to melt, and it's going to cover the whole thing. But we want to see the red sauce behind the cheese. And just like when we put the red sauce on there, we wanted to see the dough behind the red sauce. We want to see the red sauce behind the cheese. So that will melt out and will look really good. And finally, the best part, the pepperonis. My staff would watch me making these and probably laugh at me because I'm so slow. Here we go. All right, so I put them edge to edge, but again, like I said earlier, we don't ever overlap them because they're going to cup up really nicely. They're going to create this little pool of fat inside of them, and if they're overlapped, it's not going to happen that way. So we're not going to overlap at all, but we still got some good coverage there. All right, so our pizza's ready to bake. All right, so we have everything ready. We have preheated our oven to 475. A quick note about your ovens at home. When you preheat your oven, we're going to do it to 475. You should have some sort of thermal anchor in there. What that means is if you have like a heavy cast iron pan or pot, we have like a pizza stone or something like that, you should heat up your oven to the desired temperature and then just leave it for like 20 minutes. Because when you open the door, a lot of that hot air is going to rush out. When you close it, the oven will slowly heat back up. But if you have some sort of thermal anchor in there, like a heavy pot that's gotten all the way to 475, then when you close that door, it's going to heat up again very rapidly, which is what you want. Because when you open the door, you don't want it to get, go down to like 250 and then spend 5 minutes getting back up to 475. So if you got something like that, that's just a tip for you home cooks, a way to make your oven work a little bit better, a little more efficiently. Okay, cool. So we got our guy, 475 in the oven. And we will watch it and wait. We're back. And it has been 18 minutes since we put it in at 475. I opened it up slightly to peak 3 different times. And it's ready to go. There we go. All right. So it is super bubbly, super hot. We got some nice crisping around the edges. All right. You can see this bubble right here rose up, and that part burned. Anything that raises like that, there's another one right here. It got a little well cooked. That's a great sign. That means you've got like a nice living dough. You'll see that when you get frozen pizzas from the store, they don't do that. They don't bubble up. They don't create those kind of weird ridges and textures, but that is good. That means somebody made this by hand. So it's nice and hot. Best time to cut. Let's see how it comes out. Okay. So we used a perforated pizza pan to cook this. But if you have a pizza stone at home, that's a great use too. It's very difficult though, because you want to heat your pizza stone up, and then once you top your pizza, you have to slide it on. So if you have a couple of long spatulas, like this, once you top your pie, you could use them to slide it on. In professional kitchens, we use something that's kind of like this, but much bigger. It's called a peel, and you stick it under the pizza, and then you throw it into the oven. A lot of people don't have that at home, so we don't either. So that's why I decided to use this perforated pizza pan. But if you've got a stone at home, that's going to get you a really nice crust. So here, we'll take a look. Woo-wee. All right, so the top and the outsides look pretty good. We've got some nice fluffy bubbles there inside. It feels nice and soft. One problem with using a pizza pan like this, the bottom has virtually no charring to it, which in like a commercial pizza oven, you'd have like really good charring on the bottom, and that would create a lot of flavor. But this looks pretty good for a home one. I guess we'll give it a shot here. See if it actually tastes good. That's like way too hot. Oh. Yeah, right on. Right on. So we did it. This has been a really long and in-depth video. Everything that we talk about in this video, nothing's like a rule. When you're doing pizza, you don't have to put pepperoni on it. You don't even have to do tomato sauce. You can use a frozen dough that you get from the store. You don't have to do anything. There are no rules. Do it at your own pace. I just show you how we do it. Because it's kind of fun to get nerdy with stuff. But when you're doing it at home, make it fun. But us getting a little nerdy in this video is just to kind of show you how kind of in-depth we think about it at work. So, that's my pizza cooking video.
Wow, that was incredible. I want to go home now and just start cooking. I really hope you enjoyed the demo and all the other demos that will be uploaded this week for Setting the Table. Once again, thank you to Nehemiah Manufacturing for sponsoring this event. Now, we encourage all of you to keep participating all week long with all of the chefs that'll be here, and hopefully you'll continue to give. Remember, you need to take a moment right now. Just go to stt.givesmart.com. Thank you again for supporting Santa Maria, especially with this new online event, Setting the Table. We hope that you'll participate not only during this week, but also the sharing table. Remember, that's still on September 10th at Rheingeist Brewery. It's really because of you Santa Maria is able to serve over 3,000 clients every year. Your support goes a long way to ensure that people achieve their educational, financial, and health goals. Have a wonderful evening.